What's going on, everybody? It is Overreaction Time. Once again, I am your host, Simon Samano, and here with me on this edition of ORT, long overdue, I might add. It's been a while since we had him. It is the man up in the big D. It is none other than Matt Wells. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Aside from my team having the worst defense in the league, I'm coping as much as possible.
At least your team has a defense, bro. The Niners don't even really have a defense anymore.
Do we though? Do we though?
We could debate that at another time for sure. But on this edition of ORT, we got some MMA fights to talk about. We had UFC Rio this past weekend. We got some news and notes. So you ready to get this thing started, Matt?
Let's do it, man.
All right, Kamikaze, you know what time it is. Hit it.
I mean, guys, what are you fucking? Is this tonight's stupid question night? Are you guys that fucking stupid? You can't be that fucking stupid. Who gives a shit? One of the dumbest things I've ever read in my life. Fucking common sense. Everybody knows that.
Before we get started, just a little bit of business. This is where I ask you guys viewing this video right now, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you are enjoying ORT. I am enjoying doing this show every week for you, and it would mean a lot if you could hit that like and subscribe button. And now we will get started. With that out of the way, Matt, let's go. Let's start talking about some fights here. Let's talk about what happened this past weekend at UFC Fight Night 261 in Rio de Janeiro, where in the main event, Charles Oliveira, triumphant return to the octagon after losing a title fight in his most recent appearance. I believe I'm right about that. Yes. Lost the vacant title fight a couple months ago or a few months ago. Turns around and was advised not to turn around so quickly from that loss to Ilia Topuria. Takes care of business against Mateusz Gamrot. Submission in the second round. Chucky Olive's absolutely looking flawless on both the feet and especially on the ground, man. And you would think maybe after a performance like that, Oliveira might be calling for a title shot, but no, he calls for a BMF title shot with Max Holloway. And Matt, I'm just going to hit you with what I think is the most obvious take. Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira for the BMF title is an absolute no-brainer.
That is not an overreaction. That is the best possible fight you can make, especially if you're talking about a BMF, type of fight where it's like, they want to put a little something extra on a big matchup. And yeah, there's nothing that makes more sense than that. I mean, Max, incredibly popular. Charles Oliveira, incredibly popular. Two of these guys that also seem just out of the real title picture,
right?
A fight or two away. So yeah, this fight makes the most sense. It just comes down to timing, like when can we get this, and
right.
Where more than anything. But yeah, this is absolutely the best matchup you can do for the BMF, because like I said, both of these guys, I still think they have a little bit of a rocky road if they're trying to get back into a title picture, into a title shot. So yeah, absolute incredible call out, and I love to see that being like the exclamation point after that performance in Brazil.
Right.
The mic drop moment, nothing better than that, man. He nailed that whole moment was perfectly nailed by Charles Oliveira.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, listen, you touched on it. They both have finishing losses to Ilia Topuria, right? Of course, Max's was at featherweight while he was featherweight champion, but still, nonetheless, it's a finishing loss to the current lightweight champion where Max is now competing. Oliveira obviously coming off of it. It couldn't be more perfect, man. I don't know. I just feel like this has to happen, right? Like the UFC, I hope they will fully embrace this. But you said timing, right? Max Holloway was on a live stream shortly after the fight on Saturday night. Mentioned that he's still recovering from a hand injury. Says he won't be ready till January. He said January is out of the question. So I don't know. And then the thought goes out about, hey, how about at the White House? And he's not excited about waiting almost a full year because he last competed in July. So I don't know. Are you worried that we might not get this fight just because of all the circumstances?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that that's a fight that should go down at the White House necessarily. That could be considering how these cards are looking at times, throughout the year, you might end up having a BMF headline a pay-per-view earlier in the year, right? Like I could see that happening. Because like you said, he said he wouldn't be available in January, but he also said February would be ideal, according to his timeline. So you could see that fight headlining a February pay-per-view. And that would be fine with me, I think, because that type of fight, especially if you do it you could do it in Vegas, if they go up north in Toronto or something like that, that would also be a good atmosphere. I just don't want it to be in a place where it's like, does it make sense to have these two guys here? And
Sure.
I mean, I said you do it in Toronto, like Max is well loved there, Charles is well loved there. Obviously, you do it in the Vegas, it's the same situation. Just don't do it in some random spot. You know,
Yeah,
don't bring that one to Abu Dhabi.
Right. If we're March next year in Vegas, which is what traditionally has been a Vegas month, that would make sense. April, Miami, that's traditionally been a Miami month in April. I think even that would make sense. I mean, there's no reason why you can't. We did just see Max defend the BMF title against Dustin Poirier in a to headline a pay-per-view back in July. So yeah, this makes absolute sense. Now, they fought before, Matt. So I just want to get your early take on a fight 10 years later, right? They fought before in 2015. Max won. He won because of a weird injury to a really weird and nasty sounding injury to Charles Oliveira. So I don't know. You kind of like discount that fight from 10 years ago. It's this kind of feels like Conor and Dustin Poirier, right? Like when they fought, when they were prospects, doesn't really mean as much. Now that they fought, many years later in the rematch and trilogy, this has sort of the same feeling to it, right? Wouldn't this fight mean so much more now? And I don't know how what would your early lean be?
I mean, yeah, like as far as that first fight goes, I don't even count that as a first fight that really happened because that freak injury, like it just came out of nowhere, like right when they were still getting settled in, and you were like, what just happened?
What happened? Yeah,
you're like an esophagus injury, like what? But yeah, I think it would be cool to run it back just because of we never got a final outcome to that, like a satisfying outcome to that first meeting. And yeah, like you said, it was so long ago, like these guys were still coming up. Like it was like we didn't know what these guys would be either. Like they were still popular at the time, but they weren't nearly to the level that they are now after these title runs and all that stuff. So I mean, these guys have really built a huge name for themselves over the years. Running it back now with this, secondary sort of title just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I could see this with the BMF hanging over. I could see this being a great stand-up fight. I really could see it being a great stand-up fight, right? I don't think Oliveira would necessarily want to just take it to the ground automatically. Like he might if a game plan on the feet isn't working, but I can see this being a really great stand-up fight.
I mean, I think he would take it to the ground pretty quickly, honestly. In my opinion,
I mean, it would be smart. It would be smart. It would be smart.
Let's be real. Gamrot was tagging him, and that's why he was like, "All right, I got to get this back to the ground." So it would be dangerous to stand with Max like that. I think that's what kind of Max was like. I saw some other clips from that stream. Max was just kind of like, wasn't too impressed. He's like, I'm going to light this dude up on the feet. That's what I was kind of reading from him a little bit. But
I like it. I hope we see it. I hope we see it sometime early next year. I would rather not wait till the White House, but that fight absolutely has to happen, man. Absolutely has to happen. We agree on that. Okay, let's move on now, and let's talk about the co-main event at UFC Rio, where Deiveson Figueiredo, he came away with a split decision win over Montel Jackson. Just kind of a sort of whatever performance. And then afterwards, he's calling for a fight with Merab Dvalishvili, who Merab posting on X afterwards. Let me go ahead and find this here real quick. He congratulated Deiveson Figueiredo. He said, "Great performance against a top opponent. I'm waiting for you." Eyes emoji. Let me tell you something right now, Matt. I am not waiting for that matchup. So I'm going to hit you with this. Deiveson Figueiredo has no business even thinking about a Merab title fight right now.
I'm going to say that's an overreaction a little bit, just because he's supposed to be out there promoting himself. So he's got to do whatever he can. But off of that performance, didn't inspire a title fight. It really didn't. And a lot of that has to do with his opponent as well, who really didn't do much of anything. He didn't bring the fight to him. And I get that both of those guys have kind of tricky styles. Like Montel Jackson, like he's weird. His proportions are weird. He's got very long legs. He's got huge hands. He's a tricky sort of fighter, and by a lot of measures, Deiveson's the same way. So it really came down to like this almost mirror match in a way, where both guys just couldn't figure out a way to implement what they were better at, and it just resulted in a stalemate of a fight, unfortunately. But I'm going to say it's still a little bit of an overreaction, because he's got to go out there. He's not, a spring chicken by any means. So he's got to try to do what he can to get his name back in the title contention. But yeah, he's still not going to get that fight next. He absolutely should not.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, you're calling it an overreaction. I think you're probably harping on my no business even thinking about it. Of course, he's gonna think about it, but I'm more so thinking just in terms of like the matchup itself. I mean, look, he's coming off of back-to-back losses before this stalemate performance against Montel Jackson to Petr or Corey Sandhagen. Doesn't he at least have to get one of those back before he can even, entertain or think about fighting Merab, or before the UFC could even consider it?
I would agree. But there's also another matchup out there that makes a lot of sense. If Umar is out there. I don't know if they're going to run Umar in the next title fight.
He's fighting Mario Bautista in a couple weeks.
Oh, that's true. That is true. That's true. I forgot about that. So yeah, the winner of that's probably going to get the next title shot. Actually, I would like to see it. Yeah, run it back with Corey. Because Corey didn't have a terrible performance, all things considered, against Merab, in my opinion. Right, he did pretty well keeping himself upright for the most part, but he almost did get finished as well. But yeah, run it back. If you can get past Corey, then you'd have a lot to say about getting a title shot.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I didn't want to make a whole overreaction out of Montel Jackson, dude, but let's just talk about him real quick, because this was his moment, man. And you don't get these moments often. At 34 years old, he was doing really well leading up to this fight, right? He was on a winning streak, on a significant winning streak, looking good, had some finishes in there. And then we get to this fight against Figueiredo, big name, and he just froze, right? Like, what happened to him?
I don't know. I don't know if it was fighting in Brazil, hearing the chants, the travel. I don't know, man. He just went out there and didn't do anything. And that was so strange for me, because I was really high on him in this matchup. It was like you said, like, this was his moment to go out there and make a statement and say, I belong in this top 5. You go out there against a former champion, albeit of a lighter weight division, and put on a show. People are going to believe you're the new entry into that elite of the division. He went out there and did absolutely nothing. And that was really, really disheartening.
Yeah, really disheartening. I mean, you get a shot like that, you get an opportunity like that. Really, I mean, I don't want to put too much on it, but this is overreaction time. Opportunity of a lifetime, dude. I mean, you're number 15 at the very bottom of those rankings. Being able to fight the former champ, you got to at least go out there and throw some punches, especially with that reach advantage that you talked about. And for him to just freeze, in the moment and come up small, feel bad for him, But hey, you got to be able to let loose in a fight like that. So. Okay, I don't want to harp too bad on Montel Jackson, but I did want to talk about it a little bit. So, all right, let's move on now, dude. Let's talk about one more fight from UFC Rio. And it's not often on Overreaction Time, Matt, that I talk about prelims, but we are going to talk about an impressive victory and an impressive UFC debut by Bia Mesquita. Bia Mesquita comes away with an absolute dominant submission win over Russian Ronda, Irina Alexieva, in Brazil. I mean, just absolutely fantastic debut for her. Made a splash. Now, Bia Mesquita, for anybody who wasn't familiar with her, a decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, has dozens of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world titles on her resume. She comes into the UFC at 34 years old, absolutely makes a splash with this performance. And it's not often that I will talk about a prelims fighter, and it's not often that I will talk about a prelims fighter so highly that I will tell you this, Matt, that Bia Mesquita, she will fight for a UFC title by the end of 2026.
Not an overreaction.
Oh,
not an overreaction whatsoever. I was about to tell you they need to put her on the Kayla Harrison track, fast track her ASAP to the top. When these rankings update, the official UFC rankings update, if they haven't already, she needs to be in the top 10 already. Like, that's how high. Yeah. That's how high I am on her.
And that's just based on what we saw. She passed the eye test with flying colors.
Absolutely. And it's hard to, you have to consider the opponent as well. Like Russian Ronda, I am not high on her whatsoever, right? Like she's just a warm body. No disrespect to her, but she's not proven anything in the UFC. However, when you consider the way that Bia went out there and just did whatever she wanted, completely dominated, showed all aspects of the game. Yep. Fast tracker to the top right now.
Yep, it's that simple, man. And this division, obviously, the UFC women's bantamweight division just needs something, anything, right? Because it doesn't have anything going for it right now, other than the fact that Kayla Harrison is the champion, and she's one of the biggest names, biggest female stars in mixed martial arts. But they need something, and Bia Mesquita definitely could and should be that, man. Like you said, it's not about the opponent that she beat. It was a debut against Russian Ronda that I'm also not very high on. but Bia Mesquita passed the eye test with flying colors. Striking looked good. You know, you'll get a lot of comparisons in the aftermath of this to like Mackenzie Dern because of just their stories, right? Like coming from a decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. The big difference, though, is that you look at Bia Mesquita's initial striking in the UFC versus where Mackenzie Dern's striking was when she entered.
Yes.
Completely different worlds. I mean, clearly she's more polished.
Yes, very different levels. You could just tell she's more well-rounded. She's more comfortable more than anything on the feet. Like, I'm not saying she's the best striker in the division by any means, but like to your comparison, like we would see Mackenzie look a little like a fish out of water at times on the feet. Bia didn't give you that. She didn't give you that vibe at all. She felt like I can hold my own here, and guess what? I can also take you down and ground and pound the hell out of you. Like it's everything. The eye test passed with flying colors, man. I am super high on Bia right now. I want to see her in a fight within the next month, and hopefully it's against a ranked opponent.
I was going to say, so what do you think that would be? You say you already put her into the top 10 of the women's bantamweight rankings. I'm okay with that, but what would you do? What would you do with her then, looking at the bantamweight division, which is thin right now? Would you try to get her in there with someone like a Miesha Tate who has a name and she's a veteran? Or would you try to get her with somebody who's already up there in that top 5, top 6, like an Ariane Aldana or a Yana Santos or something like that? What would you do?
You know, I'm not sure about like the teammate situation, training partners, all that stuff. I'm not really familiar with it, but like Carol Hosa, like is a name that kind of stands out to me. Like she's a solid opponent, but she's always just somebody she's hung with the top 15 opponents in that division. So you go in there against someone like that and you can prove yourself against her, then yeah, we'll know if she can do the same thing she did here in her debut against somebody like that, then yeah, top 5 would be next. So you would be looking at somebody like Yana Santos after that fight, and then maybe a Norma Dumont or something like that. But yeah, you gotta fast track her, man. You really do. Her next fight needs to be against a ranked opponent.
Yeah, well, we're gonna find out probably real soon. She comes away from this fight without really any damage after running right through Russian Ronda. So we're gonna find out real soon what the UFC thinks of her and how quickly they want to fast track her. But we agree here, man. They got to fast track her, and if they do, she's going to be fighting for the title by the end of 2026. And I'm very much looking forward to what that fast rise is going to look like. Okay, man, let's go ahead and let's move on now away from UFC Rio. Let's talk a little news and notes here. All right. Biggest, I guess, kind of news, or this was news that came out early last week after last week's edition of ORT, was the Conor McGregor suspension. All right. Conor McGregor was suspended for 18 months by the UFC, or actually technically by the doping program, the Combat Sports Anti-Doping, which administers the UFC's drug testing program. He's suspended for 18 months, but of course you got to look at the fine print of this 18-month suspension and see that he is going to be eligible to compete March 20th, which is only about 6 months from now. And the reason for that is because it's for a whereabouts violation. They could not find Conor to take tests on June 13th, September 19th, and September 20th, 2024. So because of the last whereabouts violation on September 20th, he gets an 18-month suspension. Matt, this was really weird news when it came out, I think, for all of us. At first, we thought it was a big deal. Then you look at the fine print and you realize it's not really a big deal. And I thought about it more and more, dude. And I'm just going to hit you with this, man, that Conor McGregor's suspension, quote unquote, makes the UFC drug testing program look bad.
Not an overreaction. Because why did it take so long? If you're like, I just don't understand the timing of this. I really don't. And it's also a little bit too convenient that he's made available for the White House card.
Right. It should have been a 24-month suspension.
Exactly.
But because he, quote unquote, cooperated, according to the press release, he got reduced by 6 months. Oh, how convenient.
Exactly. How convenient. Isn't that lovely? And it's just like, are you trying to, I guess, make your program look good by saying, hey, we got the biggest name possible. We got an issue with the biggest name here. We couldn't find him 3 times, which is not a surprise because BKFC can't find the guy for a press conference all day, having us wait around for hours upon hours. But that's not a surprise that you can't find Conor McGregor. So I just don't understand, why did they have to wait so long for something that came in mid to late last year to announce it? Like, what's the holdup here? Were there multiple legal issues going on behind the scenes? Were they trying to negotiate with the UFC to say, hey, we can, move past this, or I'll do more extra testing, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know what happened behind the scenes there, but the fact that it took so long for this news to come out is very concerning. And it just doesn't sit well for me, because it just seems like this is some sort of formality to make one side look good and, try to say that we're holding everybody accountable when we got Conor McGregor's name on the list, but he's also still going to be available for the big fight that everybody wants to see him on.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. No suspension, no real suspension here. It's a suspension in name only. And I think my issue with this, Matt, is the 13 months, because my head immediately goes to, if they're willing to wait 13 months to announce news of a suspension, what else are they willing to keep from us? I mean, that's the whole part. It's a transparency issue more than anything. It's a transparency issue, plain and simple. That's it. Maybe they thought this was going to look good, but really all it does is create more skepticism of the validity of this program. I mean, and for all the talk coming out of the USADA era of how USADA wasn't legit and the way they ran themselves, and, the way they ran the program, and Dana White was very adamant, and we had a whole thing about, USADA versus the UFC coming out of the program, and legitimacy being the key. How does this help with the legitimacy? Just because you got Conor, you didn't really suspend him. It's 24 months. It's like somebody realized, oh, wait, but 24 months takes us past the White House event. Dang, we're going to have to shave 6. It opens up the door for that thought process, man. Like, why? Like, what is going on?
I don't get it. And I just pulled up, the test history for this year. He's been tested 4 times so far this year as well.
They found him 4 times.
Yeah, allegedly. They found him 4 times.
Allegedly.
So, and one of the things I wish that if they're trying to, I guess, give this illusion of that they're out there trying their best to get everybody, like, why don't we get the actual results? Like, they should be posting results, I think, as well. Like, sure, like, it may just be one thing, but don't just tell us you tested a guy 4 times. Like, give us a little bit more information
or something like that. I'm guessing they would cite.
Maybe.
They
might. It might be an issue or something like that, but I don't know. It just all seems like it's a little bit of a, hey, we're doing our job over here, guys. Don't worry about anything. Everything's on the up and up. See, we got Conor McGregor. We couldn't find him, but we found him. And since we couldn't find him those few times, we're going to hold him accountable, and we're going to announce it, almost a year later. Like, what?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Dana White or somebody from the UFC, Novinsky, somebody from Combat Sports, anti-doping, somebody should have to answer that question. Why did it take 13 months to announce this news? And what were they really hoping to accomplish? I'd really love for somebody to do that. We'll see. We'll see what we get, but I'm not confident we're going to get much of anything. We were supposed to get an interview with the head of Combat Sports anti-doping. It was going to happen, and we're still waiting on it. It's been like, what, almost 2 years now? We're still waiting on it to happen. Yeah,
that was supposed to be a press conference or something, right?
There was supposed to be this press conference. They were gonna, it's just a bunch of crap, man. But anyways, dude, all right, it makes the sport look bad. It just makes the UFC look bad. It makes the sport look bad. I don't know that they care, but that's just my opinion. So
yeah, I don't think they care. I don't think.
All right, dude. Let's move on now. Didn't get to talk about this last week on Overreaction Time, dude, because we had so much talk coming out of UFC 320. But that was the fights that were announced for UFC Qatar. It's UFC Qatar, as it's supposed to be called Qatar. It's Qatar, right? That's how it's pronounced. I always thought it was UFC Qatar. It's Qatar, not Qatar. But UFC Qatar is happening. I gotta look up the date, Matt. It's happening when? Please, I have to look this up here. UFC Qatar is going down when? Very soon, relatively soon, November 22nd. It's going down November 22nd. It is going to be headlined by Arman Tsarukyan against Dan Hooker, with the co-main event of Belal Muhammad against Ian Machado Garry. My very simple overreaction for this, Matt, is that UFC Qatar got it wrong, and Belal versus Ian Machado Garry should be headlining over Tsarukyan versus Hooker.
Not an overreaction. I 100% agree. I was like, why is this fight in the co-main? I don't get that whatsoever. I mean, it's disrespectful to a former champion.
I think that's the answer, right?
Yeah. Like,
I think
it's
that's
like,
the answer.
like, I get the UFC, like, you can tell when guys get their title opportunities, they get the title, then they lose the title, and you know it's going to be, Ankalaev for one. We know he's going to have a long road back to the title, right? So you can just tell when guys are going to have long roads, and there's no better indicator than this. And when you say, hey, your next fight's a co-main in a completely new territory that we've not been to.
On a fight night, yeah, on a fight night, putting the champ on a fight night in a co-main event. He's still ranked number 1 in the welterweight division. Belal Muhammad is. Yeah, why is he co-headlining to number 2 versus number 6?
I don't know.
The co-main is number 1 versus number 6 in the welterweight division. Lightweight, it's number 2 versus number 6.
I don't get it, and it's I mean, it's a solid card. I guess the idea is that maybe they expect a finish. You're more likely to get a finish in Tsarukyan versus Hooker, so maybe that's why they're trying to put it into a main event. Maybe they think Belal will try to drag out a fight, considering that how he lost the title. Maybe he'll come in a little bit more reserved. I don't know, man. There's a lot of questions I have about that, but it just seems like they did get this wrong, and I think they need to show a little bit more respect to Belal as a former champ.
Seriously, man. I mean, what do you think is going to be the more competitive fight between those two?
I mean, I think Garry and Muhammad is going to be the more competitive fight, but like I said, I think it could be more of a chess match than anything. I could see Belal being a little bit more strategic, and we have definitely seen Garry be strategic in certain fights as well, where he's, he talks all this trash before the hand, like he's the best in the world, blah, 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 nobody can touch him, but then we'll see him go out there and really point fight. So I think the matchmakers see this fight coming down to the judges' scorecards, and that's why they're like, all right, we'll stick this one on the co-main, trying to justify it in my mind as we talk about it. Sure. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, they were like, Hooker versus Tsarukyan is going to be more action packed, and that's what we want headlining this card.
Don't you think well, I don't know, maybe this is much ado about nothing, but don't you think the manager of Belal Muhammad should be advocating for the number 1 contender and former champion to be headlining? I understand. Arman Tsarukyan is also one of his fighters, and we're talking about Ali Abdelaziz, but don't you think the manager should be advocating for his former champion to be headlining? Like, what gives, dude?
Things that happen when you manage half the roster, right? It's like you got to pick and choose your battles. I mean, at the end of the day, he can say, look, I got my guy in the main and the co-main event, and that's enough for him. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't care about the order, right? It's just whatever it is. Yeah, I wonder if Belal feels disrespected. I'm guessing we're going to get some sort of standard answers from Belal, but I have to believe deep down he's probably feeling disrespected.
Yeah, I mean,
whenever he does interviews, and I don't think he's spoken to anybody since the fight.
No, and also if you catch Belal in the right mood, he'll open up and he'll be a little bit, more revealing about how he's feeling about things.
Yeah, depends. We'll see what he has to say about it, but I really do feel like it's disrespect towards Belal, and I do think that should be the main event. But hey, listen, looking forward to that event regardless, and I suppose that's how the UFC is looking at it, right?
Yeah, it's a solid card, top to bottom for the most part.
It is a solid card with 2 really great fights in the main and co-main. Just wish that they were flip-flopped. So,
yeah.
Anyways, man. All right. Well, before we move on with this week's and conclude this week's ORT, it's my show, Matt. All right, it's my show. I'm going to talk a little NFL. You're an NFL enthusiast. I'm an NFL enthusiast. You see the hat. I'm a Niners fan. For those of you watching, Matt is a Cowboys fan. We always do this as Niners and Cowboys fans. But maybe, Matt, I just need a little sympathy, okay? Because here's my overreaction. Based on what happened yesterday with Fred Warner's injury, the 49ers are the most cursed team in the NFL.
That's an overreaction, sir.
Come on, dude.
Great, gross overreaction.
How can you even say that? You're going to say it's the Cowboys?
Listen, it's very unfortunate what happened to Fred Warner. As far as 49ers players go, like you got to be a fan of that dude, right? You got to be as a player. He's incredible. However, you do not have Jerry Jones running your organization. You do not have a front office that said we're going to trade away the best player in the league defensively and say our defense got better, and try to gaslight the fan base. And then what are we on week 6 now? And then turn out to actually have the worst defense in the league. Go figure. You traded away the best defensive player in the league, and now you have the worst defense.
Well, I think maybe the Niners just lost the best defensive player in the league yesterday. But
maybe,
with all due respect, to
maybe he's definitely up there. I will give you credit. He's definitely one of the best players in the league. But the gaslighting that we as Cowboys fans have to sit through week in and week out. You know, just last week we had Jerry Jones up in the booth flipping the bird to Jets fans because they won a game. Then this week, all of a sudden, he don't want to talk after they get embarrassed by Carolina.
Hey, listen,
it's so convenient for Jerry to just pop up whenever things are going good.
But what you got going on, you don't have a curse. You just have an old man who thinks he knows the business and the X's and O's of football. That's not necessarily a curse, dude.
Jerry Jones is a curse.
The 49ers, okay, but the Niners, dude, in this injury situation, there isn't a single injury situation in the NFL in the last 5 to 10 years that even compares to what we have been going through, man. And yesterday was just the cherry on the shit Sunday with Fred Warner breaking his ankle because the Niners have been suffering injuries left and right, whether it's soft tissue like a hamstring and George Kittle or an ACL and Nick Bosa. And people will often talk about, well, something's got to be going on with their athletic training, with their athletic trainers. Like, what's going on with their conditioning program? What are they doing stretching? What are they doing the wrong things? But then yesterday was just a freak accident, dude. Mm-hmm. Broken ankle, bro. I mean, the Niners can't win one way or the other. 4-2 somehow still, but this season is going to go nowhere when you're missing not one, but 2 defensive players of the year in Nick Bosa and now Fred Warner. My heart hurts, dude. My heart hurts. Just give me the sympathy I need, bro. Just give me the sympathy I need.
I'll give you some sympathy. I'll give you a little bit, but I'll also say, you guys have also got a little rabbit's foot, and you kind of solved the issue with CMC's injuries, but now you got.
Well, there's still 11 games left for him to go down for the rest of the season, bro. So that's where my head's at, dude. Who's next? Yeah. Is Trent Williams next? Is CMC next? Who's next, man? That's where my heart hurts, dude. Fred Warner, heart and soul of the team. God, sucks so much. Sucks so much, dude.
It hurts.
Anyways, man, I just needed to get that off my chest. I appreciate you listening. I understand the Cowboys' plight that you're going through as well. And I feel bad for you, dude, but it's a different type of cursed over here. It hurts so much. It's out of our control. Man, I just can't believe it.
Both hurting for different reasons. Hurting for different reasons.
Is what it is. All right, man. Well, the time for therapy and overreacting has come to an end. Matt, appreciate you for being back on the show, dude. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. Anytime, man.
We'll see what happens with the Niners and Cowboys. Cowboys going to sneak into the playoffs? Yes or no?
No, hell no.
Not at all. Not with that defense. I don't think the Niners are going to make the playoffs either. Yeah. We'll be having these conversations off to the side for sure. But for everybody tuning in, please, I appreciate you guys for watching. Please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed this edition of ORT, and we will see you on the next edition of Overreaction Time. Dana, take it away.
MMA Junkie AI.